Okay, so we're going to dive into something pretty fascinating and, I gotta say, really complex. We're going to unpack this theory. It's a huge, interconnected history of, well, everything: spirituality, language, even family trees. And it all leads back to one central figure: Guru Nanak. So the source material we're looking at today, it kicks off with this incredibly powerful line from a sacred Shabad by Bhai Gurdas ji. It really sets the stage for something monumental, right? It's not just talking about a new chapter. It's like a whole new book is being written for the world. All right, so the way this text frames Guru Nanak's arrival, it's not just, a date on a calendar. It's presented as a cosmic event. And to get that idea across, to show just how big of a deal this was supposed to be, the text uses these really powerful metaphors from nature. Let's check them out.
So think about that for a second. The idea here from that same Shabad is that this wasn't just another voice in the conversation. It was an enlightenment so profound it basically reset reality. Those older truths, the stars, they're not just hanging out alongside the new one. No, they're completely outshone, totally eclipsed by this new sun.
And it doesn't stop there. The text keeps going, describing the power, the sheer force of this teaching. This isn't some quiet suggestion. We're talking about a roar of truth so powerful, it just sends all the old ideas scattering. It leaves like zero room for argument. So here's the main takeaway from all this. It's not just about one man. It's about a total, fundamental shift. The text claims that everywhere Guru Nanak went, that place was changed. It became a center for worship. This was all happening, it says, to free the world during what's called the Dark Age of Kali Yuga, which in Hindu cosmology is this long era of deep spiritual darkness. Okay, so if this is this huge cosmic event, where did this light actually come from? Well, what's really fascinating about this research is that it argues the answer isn't just with Guru Nanak. No, the key, it says, is in his family tree, specifically a really deep and ancient one that comes through his mother's side. The whole story really zeroes in on one person, Guru Nanak's mother, Mata Tripta Ji. And this focus on the maternal line, it's not just a side note. It's presented as absolutely essential. The argument is that her family history is basically the key that unlocks this whole spiritual puzzle. And this is where the research drops a really specific anchor for her family tree. It traces her lineage back to the Chahal Chauhan Parmar families. Now, this is a community with a really long and well-known history, which firmly plants her roots, her identity, right in the Punjab region. And this is where the theory makes its most explosive claim. Get this. It says her family tree doesn't just stop there. It connects directly to the ancient and royal Ikshwaku dynasty. Why is that such a big deal? Well, because this is presented as the very same divine lineage as some of the most major figures in Indian spirituality. We're talking Lord Rama and Lord Mahavira. So, building on that, the research then lays out this really interesting theory about reincarnation. It suggests that Mata Tripta herself was the final rebirth in a sacred line of mothers, a line that stretches all the way back, connecting Guru Nanak's birth directly to these foundational figures from the Puranas, which are, a huge collection of ancient Hindu texts. Okay, so we've got the family tree. Now let's pivot to what I think is the core intellectual argument of this entire piece of research. It's how it tries to connect that genealogy to a universal theory of language and spirituality. This is the big idea right here. It's called the E.K. Gurmukhi theory of elements, and the argument is pretty radical. It says that Gurmukhi is not just, the alphabet for writing Punjabi. No, it's actually a universal system, a kind of theory of everything for spirituality that links all these different traditions through sound, phonetics, and something called cymatics. That's the science of how sound and vibration can actually create visible geometric patterns. Super interesting stuff. So to build this case, the research starts by looking at two different scripts. On one side, you've got Shahmukhi. That's tied to the Sufi saint Baba Farid and has its roots in Indo-Persian traditions. Then, on the other side, you have Gurmukhi, which comes from Sanskrit and Siddha traditions. And the argument here is that Guru Nanak didn't just pick one over the other. He brought them together.
He synthesized them. So what's the end game here? It's this grand, unified theory of language. This research claims that the EK Gurmukhi system isn't a single script, but a powerful synthesis, a combination of elements from Sanskrit, Siddha, Shamukhi, Arabic, and even Aramaic. And hang on to that last one, because we are definitely coming back to it. Okay, so if you have this universal language, this universal theory, what does that mean? Well, based on this idea, the research then makes some pretty extraordinary claims about how far these ideas spread. We're not just talking about the Indian subcontinent anymore. So just how far did this influence go? According to this research, way further than you'd probably guess. The claim is that it went from the heart of Punjab, across Asia, and all the way to the center of the Catholic world, Rome. Now this is a wild claim. Citing what it says is a papal brief from back in 1518, the source claims that Guru Nanak didn't just visit Rome, but that he was actually honored there by Pope Leo X. And the reason? For his work fighting against slavery. I mean, that's a direct link being drawn between the founder of Sikhism and the Vatican. And remember when I said we'd come back to Aramaic? Here it is. The research connects the dots even more. It links the Sufi saint Baba Farid to Jerusalem, and in doing so, it suggests there's a shared linguistic bridge, a connection between the Indo-Persian systems and Aramaic, which, of course, is the language that Jesus is believed to have spoken. Okay, so you might be asking, why all this research? Why put all these pieces together now? Well, the source brings this huge, sweeping, global history right back down to a really personal story. This isn't just some abstract theory in a book, it's presented as a living legacy. This entire body of work, we learn, was started by a man named Professor Harnack Singh. And just look at his background. This was not your typical academic. We're talking about a former Asian champion in volleyball, a 3-time decathlon champion for India, a national record holder, just an incredible athlete. But here's the kicker. He was also a descendant of that very same Parma Ikshwaku family tree that he was studying. So for him, this wasn't just research. It was a deeply personal quest. And that quest is still going. His work is now being continued by an R&D team, and they've given it a really modern mission. They're taking these ideas and using them to argue for intellectual property rights for artists and creators of traditional knowledge. They're actually advocating at international organizations like WIPO, which is the UN's body for intellectual property. So this is very much a living project. Which really brings us full circle, doesn't it? This whole epic story. We're talking ancient dynasties, universal languages, journeys across the globe. It all started with one person just looking into their own family history. It really makes you think, and that's the final question to leave you with. How do our own personal stories, our own family histories, shape the way we see the biggest, most world-changing events? It's a powerful idea, how something so personal can become a way of seeing the entire universe.